comments. You see the clock.
Our podcast series, Welcome to the Future, starts now.
What's up, everybody? We are back with season 2 of Welcome to the Future. If you are just now tuning in, you'll probably recognize the space looks a little different. We've done some minor upgrades here. You'll see some improvements throughout the season as the season progresses. But before we get into this episode, I have to introduce our co-hosts this episode prior to our guests. And starting off, we have our CEO and co-founder, Mr. Brett Stevens here. You probably haven't seen him in a while since like episode 1 of where it all began, but glad to have him back. Secondly, on top of that, we have none other than Mr. Ben Arnet. You've seen him with some of the dab sessions we've done, some of the smoke sessions, and he is also our co-founder, but he is our president. So we have our two guys sitting in with us. They make the ship happen here. And I said ship, S-H-I-P, for those that are listening. They make sure that the ship happens here. But I could not forget our other guest who's sitting in with us. He's none other than Mr. Jake Ellenberger. He's a businessman. He's a father. He's a former UFC fighter. And he's sitting in with us today. How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Listen, good to have you here. Feeling
Appreciate
good.
it, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Brett, how's it feel to be here?
Good.
Feeling good? Yeah. It's been too long since you've been here, man.
Yeah, you know.
He's like, hey, you see me when you see me. I'm in.
We got bigger seats.
I know.
That's why we got them back. We got these bigger, comfier seats now. I was like, oh, this is way better. This is
if
big
you guys
boy
are
approved
looking,
right
you
here.
probably no longer see us hunched over in some of our tall bar stools. So good things are happening this time for season 2. But as we get into it, I want to read a little bit of our guest bio for who will be sitting in with us today. So make sure you tune in. Check this out. It says Jake Ellenberger is a former welterweight UFC athlete and a USA Marine. Jake has spent many years training in MMA, wrestling competitively, successfully winning numerous Ultimate Fight Championship events, including bonus categories like Fight of the Night, Performance of the Night, and Knockout of the Night. Jake is also an active investor, businessman, adventurer, and a family man. By the way, he has 2 boys and a girl with his beautiful wife. So we have a jack of all trades sitting in with us. So yeah, man, welcome. Let's get into talking. How are you? How have you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you guys having me.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to it, though.
What are days like for you these days? Now that what's life like?
Busy. You know, I always joke that, man, fighting was easy. Your schedule's a lot easier, but obviously with business and kids and stuff, this stuff gets a little bit crazy. Schedule gets a little bit wild, but doing well though, doing good.
Yeah. Do you miss anything about the busyness and the crazy schedule?
No, I mean I miss some of the training sessions, but I'm still training though. Still training, not as much as I used to, but. Yeah, business is good though.
So we can get you in the office and kind of train us, right? We got some goals here that we're trying to get going. So have some fitness nights.
Definitely.
Okay,
good. Let's do it.
Fellas, how does it feel to have
sales
Jake
guys
here?
got to roll with Jake. Like,
right? You got to roll with Jake to kind of know what's going on here, fellas.
see how bad you want to make those calls.
Right? You got to hang out with Jake. If you come back from a Jake visit, you're good. Yeah. Ben, how does it feel having Jake here? I know he's a long-term friend of the Fohse family. It's great to have him. I mean, what are your thoughts on having him with us?
Yeah. I got to meet Jake this year, and we kind of hit it off. Brett and I, we went to a couple of fights, and come to find out he's an investor in the cannabis space, and works in the space as well. And just one thing led to another, and we're like, dude, you should come on and do a podcast, tell your story about the transition from fighting to investor to, seeing the cannabis space, and now that the UFC is kind of adopting cannabis friendly, laws, and the NFL's next, NBA. So it would be kind of nice to talk to him about seeing the athletes now using cannabis as a recovery process, and I'm sure he's got a bunch of great stories for us too. So
absolutely, Brett. What about you? I mean, I know you have ties to fighting in some of your earlier days. What is it like to have Jake in with us?
Yeah, it's great, man. It's great. It'll be good. It'll be good.
So let's start off here, Jake. You were born March 28th, Omaha, Nebraska. Take me back to your journey of getting to the fighter that we know today.
Man, it's going back. Yeah, it's a long road. I mean, like anything, it takes a lot of time to develop. But and certainly the UFC and MMA you see today, it's been constantly evolving and changing, and it just keeps getting more competitive, more better athletes, better fighters. People are training when they're younger now. It's a different world. But for me, I started fighting when I was about 20, and just kind of like fell in love with it. Really was just training. And I have a twin brother, Joe. He kind of pushed me, motivated me. He grew up wrestling, so nice. He kind of got me into it, and we just kind of fell into it. To be honest, it's funny. I never anticipated it being a career, but just doors started opening, and it was a lot of fun.
Like, here I am.
Yeah.
Did you do anything in high school or junior high that was like sports related, wrestling or fighting at all?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing sports, football, baseball, kind of did a lot of sports growing up, but never really started training until, or taking training seriously, I should say, until I joined the Marine Corps out of high school and really like was kind of in love with that hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that. So yeah, it just took off. So
Marine Corps kind of gave you your first intro, like,
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Good. Just a follow up to that. It's noted that you were prompted to begin MMA training once you saw a friend win a welterweight title in the Victory Fighting Championship. You then went on to compete in Division II wrestling team for the University of Nebraska Omaha. What was that transition like? Obviously, as you started in wrestling, you said after the Marines, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was that transition like going into wrestling team for the University of Nebraska?
Yeah, that was I was going to school there at University of Nebraska Omaha, and then I walked on because I was already I was involved in martial arts and started fighting at like a lower level, and then obviously wrestling just helped kind of build that like mentality and helped really kind of. I knew if I was gonna pursue MMA seriously, I had to like really learn all the facets of mixed martial arts and some of the toughest guys I ever met were wrestlers. So it was just like that's kind of in the Midwest, it's kind of what they knew.
It's kind of all you know.
That was originally in the day. That was where the whole pool came out of. I mean, you had like Militich, and you had the academy up in Minnesota, and those were those guys were the bruisers at the time.
Yeah.
Those are the guys you're like, all right, I'm looking straight ahead.
Victory. I wonder how many, of the guys that fought at Victory would have been something big.
Oh, for sure.
Early on, I mean, if you could box and wrestle, you were basically the dude.
Right.
Invincible at that point.
Yeah.
I remember watching a couple of guys wrestle, and they were brothers, and one guy got thrown through a wall. And the one, it literally thrown through a wall, and he asked.
Well, what type of wall first? Are we talking concrete? Are we speaking drywall?
He's not a Marvel character.
Right. I wanted to make sure because it sounded like it was involuntarily. So
yeah. But like when you're younger and you see that, like someone getting thrown through a wall, and then his brother saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like,
so vivid.
Yeah, his response was, "Don't ever ask me if I'm okay." And I was like,
okay,
this is a different psychopath right here. But yeah, it was that, when you're watching that, you're like, these guys are on a different level. So
it's like a different switch up there,
for
right?
Sure. You're like, what's wrong with these guys? Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm backing up. Speaking of, you mentioned your brother. Did you guys fight along the same time? What was that journey like having him inspire you and then jump-starting your career?
Yeah, no, definitely. He played a huge role. I mean, he was a big fan, like early on in the UFC days and stuff. And he grew up wrestling and like kind of got me interested in more of like a fight fan and watching and stuff. And then, he was real serious into wrestling for a long time. He went to University of Nebraska Kearney, got a scholarship to go there and wrestled there. And so like we were always kind of messing around, throwing the gloves on and just terrorizing my parents growing up. So, I got two brothers, but it was always just something. But
so did all of them fight or just you two?
No, just my brother Joe and I. Yeah,
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Joe and Jake. Got it. Yeah. Perfect. Once your brother stopped fighting, how did that increase your tenacity as a fighter? Like, did that kind of propel you with a different level of inspiration, or kind of what did that fuel do for you?
No, definitely. He was like a huge advocate, and because it's funny when we first started fighting, we got kicked out of our house. We were living at home, and it was like, all right, you can do that. You're not going to live here, kind of thing. We're like, all right, we'll see you later. Like, and it was one of those. But again, like our parents' generation, it was still like there was a lot of like educational challenge. Like, there's refs, mom. This is not a street fight. Kind of, I'm not going to die. One of those. But he played a huge role though. Like, he always pushed me. With your siblings knowing you so well, they really know how to motivate you, how to push you. So that, he was huge and kind of like I believe there's nobody I couldn't beat. I mean, it was one of those where it was like you felt unstoppable.
Yeah, so invincible
for sure.
Now, as a fighter, does that help contribute to that switch when you get into the ring to kind of turn on that warrior? Like, what was that? How did you find the beast from starting as an MMA fighter with your brother's inspiration to be a Cold Stone knockout artist? How did you find the correlation between the two?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those where it was just like every like door that was open, I kind of took like one fight at a time. But like I said, yeah, I was going to college, never anticipated like making it a career, because at the time it was like 2005. There was not really. It wasn't really a career.
200 to show, 200 to win.
Right. Yeah.
$50 in travel.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So by the time you take home, I mean, what's your take
Pay
home
for your
after
own
that?
meals.
Like,
Oh yeah.
like $50 by the time you do all that?
Oh yeah. At the beginning days, we were like fighting for nothing. Yeah, $50,
You were paying to
$100.
fight.
Yeah.
So strictly, that's like a passion thing, or just a switch where you're like, I need to get some ass kicking out.
For
like
sure,
that.
for sure. You really have to have a passion for it. I mean, even like, these guys know this. Same with the cannabis industry. You really have to have a passion for what you're doing to get through those days where just monotonous and stuff that you do, and a lot of things you don't want to do. But
Yeah, everyone likes the end result and the
Right.
end product and the entertainment side of it, but no one wants to be grinding in the gym or in the
Yeah.
cultivation in 85 degrees, 70% humidity, getting rocked for 90 days. So
yeah,
The commitment is the hard part, because you got to stick to it.
It's pretty crazy to think back in those days, the fighters were taking as much of a risk as like even the UFC, right? Because it's like you're spending all this time and effort and money like developing a skill, and you don't even know like if it's like in 2003, 2004, 5, 6 even. It was, I mean, that wasn't the most successful time in UFC's history, right?
Right,
It's
right.
like you got all these guys, like if you think about it, that were, I mean, traveling and fighting and just to make a couple $100 here and there. I mean,
it's funny, even going back to that whole wrestling thing, like there were so many like incredibly tough wrestlers that were they were like, okay, we can actually make a few dollars and go fight, because there's no money in wrestling. It's just the reality. But that's when it was like, you really have to have a passion for what you're doing. Because when I was young, I was 20 to 24. Just there's no money in it. You just kind of like, you enjoy it, But I mean, there's a lot of those skills you can kind of continue to take with you as you move on to different parts of your life. So
Sure.
yeah.
Now, how did you get introduced to cannabis? What was the relationship between cannabis, being a fighter? Like, what was the introduction there?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I had a lot of friends in the cannabis space just over the years, and for me too, it was kind of like there's that whole educational hurdle where once you like can help people understand the benefits and even just the trauma we take training and fighting and stuff. So like once you can help people understand the benefits and how it can help make your life better, I mean, it was kind of an easy transition for me. But yeah, I always had friends in the industry, and so and even when I started getting into the payment business back in, like, I was actually still fighting back in like 2015, and so it was kind of like understanding more of like the cannabis industry, the do's and don'ts, what you can do, what you can't do, kind of thing. So that was more interesting to me, and then it kind of was just an easy fit. So
now, what was the conversation? I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No,
That was
just
it?
keep building. Yeah.
What was the conversation like back then for athletes and cannabis? I mean, obviously, all of us coming from the Midwest, we kind of know how white collar that is, with kind of like very strict, like it's very black and white when it comes to rules and regs for certain things like that. What was it like for you as an athlete?
No, for sure. There's always that kind of stigma, and like with your people are smoking pot, and like kind of a negative vibe in a way.
Sure.
But yeah, there's definitely like that whole educational hurdle, and like even like our like I said, our parents' generation, to where it's like, no, like it's not all just like, you're not just like this pot smoking lazy guy smoking or sitting on the couch, and not being productive. So it's like, even guys, like I have so many friends in the military that combat veterans and stuff that like have literally changed their life through cannabis, and it's cool to see though. So it's really just the ignorance of people not knowing that's where that stigma comes from.
Sure. What about you guys? I mean, you guys see it on this side and being friends and having multiple friends that are athletes. Brett, you used to be one yourself. Like, what's your outside view for athletes as relates to cannabis and the correlation between the two that you guys have seen?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we both played sports, high school. I think you actually wrestled in college.
Two all-star athletes here. Sorry, guys.
Both do. I mean, surfing, fit. I mean, everything we can do to be outside and active.
Yeah.
Lifting weights every day, whatever it may be, bodybuilding. And as soon as you kind of get rid of that, smoking makes you lazy, or just maybe you're a lazy person. I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, and I'll do a dab outside the gym. People think I'm crazy, but I'll go bang out, a 6, workout, 4 set. I mean, I would leave completely rocked, and then go do a complete work day, smoke through a work day, smoke at night, and wake up and do the whole thing over again. So I mean, the stigma is, I mean, up to you, right? What do you want to get done and how do you want to get it done? But then you break down the science side of it too, where you're reducing cortisol levels, increasing your appetite, you're recovering faster, you're getting into REM sleep faster, and you're beating your body like a UFC fighter. Or the guys in the NFL, smoking a little cannabis is not going to make you a stronger, crazier athlete, but it's going to make you recover and be at 100% much faster. So why not get to 100% faster so you can be a better athlete on Sunday or, the next fight? So it's like, would you want to be at 80% or 100%? So,
and what it does to your body, or do you want to achieve both?
Yeah, or do you want to use 8 things that come from a pharmacy and, stacking pills and all this other stuff where you can just take one plant-based solution.
There are options here.
Non-addictive, everything else. It's like
one's killing people, one's not. It's crazy.
One's killing
And
people.
We act
legal,
like
one's
one
not.
is,
It's
but
crazy.
then the one that is killing is the one that they're forced. Oh, you're sick. Don't feel. Oh, here's more pills.
Yeah,
I was just
you don't make money on curing patients. So
I was just talking to I was wakeboarding, wake surfing last night. And we're talking to a guy, and he was a doctor, right? And he was talking about how he wishes he could prescribe. He's prescribing all these anti-anxieties like every single day.
Depression, everything.
And, all these and he's like these things have terrible side effects, and literally patients of his have died because of them. And I'm just thinking in my head like, man, this is crazy. We have a plant here, and there's still some states that, like Nebraska, for example, man.
Yeah.
Which we will get into. Nebraska's not off the hook yet with some of the stuff we'll get into.
Right?
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? You have a plant that's non-violent, and you're gonna eat the fridge and pass out.
Stay in the house. You're actually cutting down on issues.
And I mean, if you have all these pro athletes, like that's something I never understood with like UFC and whatnot. And no, it's not the UFC. It's like it's the commission. But
Sure.
Federal laws.
If you want to smoke pot, I'll fight somebody that smokes pot. Like I'm good with that. Like
Put them up.
Right.
hopefully he's high when I'm fighting him. Like we're good. Like. Do you know what I'm saying? Though? So it's like, I don't know. I think that on the pro athlete side of things, and just in general, I guess I just don't understand it. Like, I don't understand if they want to smoke, or if they want to eat it, or if they want to vape it, whatever they want to do with it.
Well, and if you actually
It's a
cared
plant.
about the health of these athletes, and you saw, I mean, like the United States is the worst for pharmaceutical ads. Like you go like most places you can't advertise pharmaceutical shit. And here it's like every time, like in the Super Bowl, just watch it. It's like, do you suffer from some disease you've never heard? And it goes, and it just shows these happy people running through a field. They're like at the beach, and they're like, but then it gets to the side effects, and it's like death, like drippage, psychotic episodes, loss of sleep, hair loss, violent freakouts.
Right.
It's like anal warts. You're like, what the fuck? I'm just trying to take care of a fucking sore wrist, dude.
That you're telling me I need to take
You
care
got
of.
achy joints, take this, but you might beat your wife. Like if you have
And then
suicidal,
shoot yourself.
you have suicidal thoughts. Contact. I'm like,
While scratching on
Why
the field all
can't-
day tomorrow.
You might
like,
not sleep
how many
7 to
people
10
did that
days.
fuck up in the thing? Like to get the FDA approval, like only. 1 out of every 10,000
so
did something
crazy.
crazy. But like out of 10,000 or 10 million or a billion people smoking cannabis, it's still zero.
Still zero.
Yeah,
It's still zero. Like
no one's smoking weed and going.
no one's ODing, no one's smoking weed. The only thing you're murdering is a sandwich. Like
And your bills at home because all you do is eat.
I mean, it's crazy, right? It's like
It also kind of circles back to that whole big pharma. It's like how much money is being pushed into politics and big pharma, and it's like how are we not
and the attack
federally
on
legal?
cannabis now too, right? You're seeing the attack on cannabis again. It's like we've already gone through this.
Right.
I just actually read all this before we hopped on here. It's like over 50% of Americans like have tried cannabis at some time in life, including our parents. 20% are active current users or repeated users, So 55 million, 70 million people are using this thing regularly. You'd be seeing much higher numbers, right? It's the most used drug in the world, in the United States, the most used. So if it was a link to any violence or any crazy shit, you would find it out immediately. Like you would see it everywhere pop up, right? Like there would be huge spikes in crime, not decreases in crime everywhere you legalize.
Yeah.
Like
So
And
backwards.
it almost makes you wonder, like why? You just know it's a show, right?
For sure. Like this has been
Trying to take
forced
attention
I
on
wonder, it would
something
be
else.
funny just to like start a ticker, right, a timer, and just be like, for every opiate death or every death that's associated with some sort of anti-anxiety or some sort of psychotic and then say how many deaths per day, and then have with cannabis, and then just
That's sitting at zero.
Just watch this
Just constantly
thing, at anytime you just log onto the website. Yeah, so there's been this many deaths.
An even funner number to
Literally create
even
a
think about.
landing
You'll never
page.
know the number, but out of all the people smoking weed every day, how many suicides did cannabis stop?
Yep.
How many bad incidents?
Sure.
Like how many
Absolutely.
lives did it save today? How many shootings? How many other stuff did it stop because people smoked and just chilled the fuck out?
Yeah.
How many bad issues is it solving every day? No one wants to look at that number because it's an uncalculated number, right?
Yeah, you're never gonna find.
So you'll never know, but it's there and it's real.
I think it's
Otherwise
the
it
balance.
wouldn't be.
I think it's the obvious balance though, because it's almost like clearly the world isn't as bad. Obviously some shit is terrible, right? But it's not as bad as it could be. And I automatically think of the people who, like the Green Bodies of the world, who practice methodology on self-improvement. Like those people impact other people. So it's like over time, everyone's not just a recreational user. Some people have holistic uses. Some people have athletic uses like you may have had for injuries. Some people have recreational, anxiety, like social.
Trying to sleep.
Trying to sleep. For some people that
sure.
have sleep apnea, like it's a fit for everywhere, but it also made me question to both of you too. Did you ever find yourselves educating your athletic friends or your athlete friends on like some of the benefits so they
feel like
can
they already
kind of
knew.
Okay, got it.
Dude, well, yeah, I used to live with a bodybuilding coach, and I mean, I would smoke weed all the time, and he came and he moved into my spot with me, and he smoked as much as me, and he's like, "Now I'm going to tell you why we do this," and like he broke down like all the kinesiology of like why you want to smoke cannabis after a workout, and I was like, you don't have to fucking sell me, dude. I'm in.
Say less. I didn't
I was like,
read
I've
all
been doing
that,
it anyway,
man.
but
What even touch on like the whole recovery aspect? It's like the best way to recover is sleep. Getting good sleep, and so even with a lot of these athletes, understanding like the CBD or cannabis products you can use to put you in, sleep better, have a better night of sleep and recover quicker. So yeah, it's getting better. It's getting better, but yeah, there's still a little bit of a stigma.
What was that time like for you introducing that healing method to yourself? Like once you finally were like, okay, I'm going to try cannabis. And what was that whole aha moment where you're like, that's the thing to do?
Yeah, I think it's just like like anything, just learning more about like, I'm not getting super high. It's like you can smoke a little bit or I started using a lot of topicals too, because obviously joints and stuff. I get bad knees and just elbows are banged up, but yeah, it's kind of just like, for me, it was like, oh man, I get in deeper sleep. I sleep better. Like, and just having friends in the industry that can explain, really educate you and be like, you're not just going to go get super high. You can get a little bit of this, your day's better. You're in a better mood, sleep better. So
Sleep will do it.
Yeah.
Sleep's a big one.
Especially if it's recovery. If you can't sleep, there's no recovery. That's, that's zero and zero.
That's the
for sure.
relationship with the plant, right? And that's, and whether it be, like you said, a medicinal, some people are taking it for cancer, back pain, indigestion, nausea. You name it. There's 50,000 uses for the plant, but everyone, could benefit from having a relationship. How strong you want to have that relationship be is kind of what John and you and I were talking about on the last podcast was, you get some markets that if your relationship isn't the same as other people's relationship, though, they'll like be all weird about it. You're like, man, it's all right. My grandma uses it for this. She's not
okay.
rolling blunts. It's okay. She's not up. She's not smoking your packs. Like, let her be.
Leave her alone.
But that's why you see the diversity at the dispensaries, though, right?
For sure.
You see the people who have the relationships, and it's from the dude in the business suit, some CPA to some elderly lady getting a topical to the knee-high weed socks. You got all walks of life, and they all get along there, it shows you that plant can bring people together.
Now,
across the board.
I would like to see at least one dispensary that looks like a pharmacy for older people. So when they go, they don't have to deal with loud headphones, loud music, inappropriate clothes. Like not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But as
That'd be a good model.
Yeah, I think of my grandmother. Like obviously she's not going to get robbed there, but I do think about the anxiety of all the young kids, loud, just coming from the club 2 a.m, getting a dispensary. But what about the market, like the people and the athletes who?
Say apothecary.
Essence
Essence
does a really good job.
Yeah, so
here,
it's like you go in, it looks like an Apple store,
Yep.
right? All white. They have like nice seating area. You sit down, they call your name, you get someone who comes and like personally takes care of you. What are you here to look for? What are we looking at? And they walk you through the whole process.
free plug for Essence.
Free plug for Essence.
But they do it right. We'll take an age.
Send us some now. But you do think about the people like the athletes and the older patients who are underserved just because of the infrastructure of what it looks like.
Sure.
Like a typical athlete can't be seen leaving out of a dispensary that looks like one. But if it looked like a doctor's office, like that whole persona also has to change to a degree as well, because I think that's what's in the back of people's mind when they think of you consuming cannabis as an athlete, It's party. It's fun.
Sure. Yeah, and even like my wife's mom, has edibles and she loves it every day, so it's like yeah, changing the thing. But like even like with the payment side, like with our business, we try to help too, like the customer facing retail, like how do we make the customer experience better, like how do we make it more efficient for the business. So that's definitely part of that whole customer experience, I think, with not making people uncomfortable, so you can have your 75-year-old grandma in there, or you got the 20-year-old athlete, or whatever it is. So it can really help like all walks of life, I guess feel comfortable in the in the dispensary. But it's getting better, I'd say. Yeah.
So speaking of your payment system, obviously correlating that, it's a payment system within the cannabis industry. Let's talk about that. What is it exactly?
Yeah, so my partner and I, we started RITE Payments, and so we have a kind of a portfolio of payment solutions and banking services for actually all industries, but cannabis there's a lot more red tape in cannabis, and you got to be more careful. And so, and there's not as many options available, to be honest, in cannabis. So that's really what's fascinated me, like, the more the high risk side. So you really got to know the ins and outs and what you're doing. But yeah, we have banks that are massive in the space, and payment solutions too, whether it's PIN debit or on the blockchain, e-wallet. There's a lot of different things out there, but it's kind of putting puzzle pieces together in a way, but really understanding too, like with like a cannabis company's requirements and what's most important to them, and then kind of going from there. So there's a lot more of like understanding the customer and the business before we kind of give guidance or direction. So.
Would you say that education is one of the strongest tactics that you implement with your clients as you're like educating them on the system?
Yeah, definitely. And even like we were just talking about, like there's a stigma with payment processing. I mean, like people are like, oh, you're in the payment space, and it's like, I've seen so much funny, like so many different just.
We get it.
Process. Oh yeah.
Like what can I actually say?
Right. How can I word this?
Yeah, exactly. How can I put it nicely? Right. Like there's a lot of just slime balls in the space, but for sure. So I mean, and for us too, like we're all about like relationship building and transparency and helping people. Like if we can help businesses stay compliant and grow, then that's what we're about. So it's I'm not trying to like just put someone over to make $1, you know what I mean? Like we're definitely have a lot more of a high ethics with the payment solutions. So but it's been fun. It's a fun industry, fun space to be in, and I just love the cannabis space, to be honest. So yeah.
How do you see it improving moving forward? Like what do you see for the industry and what you offer? Obviously multiple industries, but the cannabis industry specifically.
Yeah, I mean, like there's so much tug of war too with the federal legalization too, and it's just a matter of time. But I mean, even like we were talking about before the show, Nebraska. It's like I grew up in Nebraska most of my life, and it's like they're the worst. They're one of the worst states when it comes to cannabis, and it's like
yeah.
And I think it comes back to like the whole educational hurdle, where it's like people in that like Tom Osborne, Warren Buffett kind of era, they still have that stigma of like, oh, this is the gateway drug and this is the bad, and it's all that whole negative connotation. It's just like,
and then Dare took it off. And they're like, actually, this drug might take you off those other drugs we talked
right.
about.
Oh, for sure.
If it's done right.
Yeah.
Like, I would like to see what their portfolios look like. Like I'd like to see what they have, what they're invested in, and
true.
See where the money, chasing money, right?
That's true.
I mean, because all those big states, I always wonder about that.
It'll lead you
What's holding cannabis up? Is it because all those people have investments in pharmaceuticals?
100%.
Absolutely.
And,
well, because I mean, you're directly fucking up your buddy's money, like
exactly.
directly
So
by offering your money, yours, but then also your buddies, because at some degree, if we're a network of a pharmaceutical network and you're my colleagues, you all offer something different to patients. So if I kind of take one out of the equation, then the next one is down, because then okay, now what do you offer? Okay, how can we figure that out to offer here in our cannabis products? This domino effect.
Definitely, yeah.
There's got to be a correlation, because even like states like Minnesota are supposed to be super progressive, far left. I mean, there's no reason they shouldn't have cannabis right after Colorado.
Right.
But they're like recreational should be. I mean, they're like right up there with like Portland. They should be moving along. But you get caught there and you're done. Like you go, like it's the worst medical market. It's like all.
It's horrible.
It's not good. and I'm just like, how is that state so far behind? And then, like you said, it's like, I wonder who's
Follow the money.
Who's investing? Follow
Exactly.
the money, right?
Who's pulling the strings?
So it's like, why aren't they making that available? And it's the biggest. But again, you start looking at the Mayo clinics and all the like healthcare, like United Healthcare. Everyone is headquarters in Minneapolis, and you're like, oh, all right, gotcha.
Wait, they don't have to go to the doctor when they have anxiety? They go to the...
Well, we can't be curing
skip
people.
the whole thing, just walk
So
right
no
into the
copay,
dispensary?
no insurance needed. They can take care of it on
Wait,
their
they can
own.
grow it themselves? That's a fucking big hell no.
Wait, and you can get a Fohse light, and you can grow at home too. That sounds like a good little plug there, right?
yeah.
What does it cure?
little
Everything.
Everything.
No.
That's when you run off the long little the side effects on the commercial. What does it cure? Oh,
Yeah, side effects. May enjoy boring movies more. Kids are tolerable. Your significant other doesn't seem as annoying. Walks are, I mean, it just goes through the list. Like, you just go through it like food, delicious. Like, complaining about that, you'll forget about it.
You forget about it.
Cannabis, medicine's so good, people take it for the side effects. Like,
You take it for other things. So I just want, now that we're talking about Minnesota really quick, I have to talk about these specifics because we were looking at this
Nebraska.
earlier this morning. I'm sorry, Nebraska. Minnesota is right after too. We'll talk about that in another episode, but today we'll focus on Nebraska. This is kind of crazy. So starting with like hash and concentrates, right? They have possession, any amount, 5 years incarceration, a felony, and $10,000 fine for that right there.
Some good stuff.
That little pen,
Or the pen.
Unreal.
5 years,
Zero
$10,000 felony.
0 deaths.
Zero.
You get caught selling it? Or what is it if you get
Then
caught?
if you're
It's
caught
like
selling,
25.
actually
20
1
years?
to 20 years with a $25,000 fine.
in prison.
Right now,
For that.
today, you get caught selling either one of these things.
Zero ODs.
It's 1 to 25 years.
Like
Zero
literally going,
deaths.
Hey, here's $20.
Been
anyone.
proven in
Hell no, you can have it.
Jail, exactly. Like, let me give this to
half the country is medicinal, like 13 or something plus states are
2022.
recreational.
Right.
And you're
Imagine
like,
the mind. Imagine the
could you
mind
imagine being in
twist,
Nebraska
though.
right now with a pen going to prison for 5 years, and then like looking like, dude, if I was just on an airplane and took a 3-hour ride,
But imagine the
I had
mind
a
twist
layover
being in
in
Vegas
Nebraska.
there's
and then
no-
going back home,
God,
not being
imagine
able to
that?
smoke after you've just been smoking in Vegas for 4
Nightmare.
days, walking down the street. You're kind of like, oh, I can't.
I know it.
Like,
I was talking to Brett about that. I was like, imagine being in prison and you're like,
that invisible line,
we're like
couple
you
thousand
in
miles
the
that
same
way.
country.
Yep.
You can legally
Few state
grow
lines over and down.
buy cannabis,
The
but
invisible
in
lines.
this state, exactly, a few states over, you're
states
getting
over.
locked up. Yeah, like
our neighbors over there in Nebraska, they'll take you back to jail.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
Get this one. Sale of paraphernalia is a misdemeanor, 6 months, and a $1,000 fine.
Paraphernalia.
Do sale of concentrate or
Sale or manufacture of any amount, instant felony, minimum of 1 year, up
Ruin
to
your
20.
life.
$25,000 fine.
Ruin your
Selling
life.
to a minor within 1,000 feet of a school or between 100 or 1,000 feet
That one's
away
game
from
over.
designated areas. Your first offense, keyword everybody, your first offense is 1 to 50 years, no fine. So that's 20 more additional than selling.
I mean, I do not condone at all selling
Right.
weed to a high
minor.
schooler. But 50 years.
50 years
in
and the kids
prison
is gonna go home,
for
probably
something
do their
that's not gonna
homework.
kill 'em?
Right, they're gonna go home, do their homework, not be a problem to their parents, sit in their room.
Play some PlayStation.
But then there's Adderall and there's
Yeah, but their doctor
every
can give
other
them
drug.
Adderall.
And I'm not saying
And
that people should be doing it, right?
Oxy,
For sure,
It's like,
for sure.
Xanax, it's
But
like-
50 years for it? I don't know, man. That's
No,
You'll
it
get
doesn't.
less time for murder.
As we've seen.
That's more.
As we've seen.
It's crazy.
But this is the last one. Subsequent
plant.
offense, meaning if it happens more than once, instant felony and 3 years to life.
3 years to life.
So you go to prison for 3 years, you come out,
So
you have a felony on your record.
Me giving one to you.
The cards. I could see where that one could get bad.
Done.
Quick, 'cause
Then
those
if I
are
give this
easy.
one to you, instant life.
It's crazy.
And those are high demand, right?
Then you
They
go
don't
to
smell
prison,
like
you come
smoke.
out, you got a felony, you can't get a job unless it's through like a social equity program, which was put on by the same state and government
That
that, puts
doesn't
you in
want you
fucking
doing
jail.
shit.
Here's our part. After we completely destroy your life, your credit, and your accountability to get a job, rent a home.
Right, get a job.
Any of
Here's
that.
also a little
The only
leash
thing you
that
can
will
do is
keep
go
you on
back to
for
harder
forever.
drugs now and sell that.
Right.
Unless your family's completely set up and they'll just take care of
Crazy.
you.
Yeah.
And then we're
Good
going to make
luck.
life hard for you when you do that.
Like there's no justice reform. That's not justice, right?
No, not at all.
That's crazy.
That's pretty wild, and that's still like a lot of states too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Nebraska seems to be kind of going that more liberal direction too.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, but they're so hard on like cannabis and gaming. Everybody.
You got to follow the money though. You got to see the specific guys that are in charge of pulling those strings.
Oh yeah.
I
Because someone's
guarantee you,
benefiting.
as soon as they have any kind of ownership into anything cannabis related, boom, you'll see the whole entire thing flop.
They got to figure out how they make money on it.
Yep.
Once they get theirs, they'll
If they're
they'll
not
flop.
already planning this, they're probably just delaying it until as soon as they hit go, switches, money's coming in, and it's their domain
Yeah,
now.
they just sold one and picked up the other one.
I mean, it's biggest corporation role, right? They got to figure out how they get theirs. How can they tax it? How can they get their money before they turn on? They can't turn it on and then ask you for money. They got to figure out how they get paid. Have it all.
You kind of get your money still
T's
here.
crossed, I's dotted.
Sure.
Because it says Nebraska law lists marijuana as a Scheduled 1 controlled substance. That's the
Bonkers.
money right there. Because imagine how many people
The
travel.
failed war on
What's
drugs.
meth?
What,
What's
and that's
meth?
not even on the list. We're not
know.
even talking about the other drugs that actually will have you like
Right, the hard,
like
yeah.
out.
Sure.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So just had to give you guys an example of some of the, I wouldn't say unrealistic, but I guess we can say the historic the historic progress that some of the states are making as relates to marijuana and the legalization of that. But as we come to a close with that, first off, I want to thank you for sitting in with us and chatting and
My pleasure.
taking us down your journey. Lastly, before we get done with this, what do you see for the future of cannabis? Obviously, we've talked about payment systems with you and other industries, but what do you see from your perspective for cannabis LED in the industry that you're sitting in with today?
It's cool. We didn't really talk too much about Fohse, but like just the technology and the innovation that you guys continue to do and be like the market leaders. It's really cool to see. So just becoming good friends with Brett and Ben over here and just kind of seeing their expansion, and it's really cool to see. But the cannabis industry is just going to keep growing. I think become more user friendly, and eventually hit the day where it's federally legal, and that people aren't getting locked
LED
up for 20
everybody.
years for marijuana. But no, it's a lot. Like I said, even in my industry, it's a lot of fun. The payment side, the banking, obviously it'd be a lot more options available for financial institutions and payment solutions for retail. So it's definitely going to be there. It's just a matter of when, but it's fun to be a part of.
Did you know much about LED prior to meeting Brett and Ben, or what was your experience?
Yeah, a little bit. Not I wouldn't say a lot, but
It's like, actually, let me take that back.
yeah,
Not
an
a lot.
adjustable LED.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah,
He's
no,
like, actually, I was a photobiologist.
yeah. No, I know. When I first came, the first time I came in here to Fohse too, it like just blew my mind. Just with the technology and like everything that you guys can do, and hearing about like all the the seasons, the yielding, and all, it just blew my mind. But it's fascinating though to hear.
We usually used to have one hanging up here for last season where we can kind of cut it on and play with the spectrum changes. So
Okay.
I like
people
that
could
it's
see.
not there.
But
A little more
it's
breathing room.
A little more breathing room. And you're not like ducking every time you're under it thinking it's going to fall. But
With bar stools, it makes sense too. Right?
what about you two? What do you see, Brett? I mean, obviously, as you and Ben leading the company and being CEOs and presidents, what do you see for the cannabis industry as it relates to payment systems, and how they can improve our industry, even with what we do, right, with funding and financing opportunities? How do you see the value that he adds to the industry?
Yeah, it's imperative. Like you have to have that. You have to have it, right? So and the more reliable. With us. We got a bank account shut down every week. It's like I know we saw lights. Like what?
Like, are you sure? Like,
Yeah.
But again, it's the issues that we're seeing is cannabis presents opportunities with those struggles. We started as investors in cultivation. We saw huge just problems with equipment, HPS, HVAC. You name it, we saw it, and the solution was a high-powered lighting system, which we dove into immediately. That ancillary business built off of issues and problems that we knew, thousands of other cultivators had to be going through. Same thing like them. They sat there and go, what's going on? What's an issue here? We can't bank our money. It's a cash business. How are we able to do this legally and pay taxes? But and payment systems came about, and that was one of the biggest things was payment systems, and like new horticultural technology. It's still probably the biggest things at like MJ Biz or the conferences is people want to know how they can bank their money or get financing or how they can grow more cheaper.
For sure. And even like, because one of our most popular, we have a PIN debit solution that's been underwritten for cannabis, has, you know, a direct descriptor. So any dispensary that uses it, like it'll say their place of business, same with the bank account. So, but a lot of people just, they don't know it exists. So it's kind of just, again, educating, you know, and saying it's like, they're audited like monthly, not even quarterly, like monthly. So, you know, and they're doing in the hundreds of millions of dollars a month. So it was kind of guided by the Department of Justice. So it's like, you can't tell me they're not aware of what's going on. So it's like they're okay with debit, just not credit.
Right.
So,
and as we said earlier, someone's getting some cut of it.
So crazy.
They're just getting their approval. For those that want to learn more about, you know, your business and what you offer, where can they learn more? Social media, website?
Yeah. You go to RITEPayments.com or you know, just hit me up. Jake at RITE Payments, but yeah.
Spell out RITE Payments. Is it WRIW?
RYTE. Yeah.
RYTE.com.
Yeah.
RITE Payments. RYTE payments.com.
Yep.
Perfect. What about socials?
Ellenberger MMA on social media. Yeah.
Okay. Y'all heard the guy here. Make sure you stay tuned for this episode. We'll have much more from Jake. We also tuned into one of his knockout reels, so you'll get a little bit of that later on in the episode. But in the meantime, Jake, it's been a pleasure. Look forward to having you back at the headquarters and
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you guys.
Pleasure, man. Thank you. Many more. All right, guys. This is season 2. You are in store for some treats this season. Stay tuned for more. We'll see you next week. Peace out.